Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Roy Ashford sat at his kitchen table, coffee growing cold as he reviewed the quarterly reports. The numbers always made sense to him. Unlike people, numbers never lied. They showed patterns, told stories, revealed truths that others missed. Manufacturing costs were up 2%, but productivity gains offset the increase. Clean, logical, predictable. "You're up early again," Sophia said, walking into the kitchen. She moved past him without touching his shoulder, without the small gestures that used to connect them. Her robe was different too. Silk instead of cotton. Where'd she bought that? Board meeting at 8. Roy didn't look up from the spreadsheets. "Need these ready." She poured coffee into a travel mug, the expensive one she'd brought home last month. "A gift from a client," she'd said. "I'll be late tonight. Meeting with Trey about the Morrison account." The name made Roy's jaw tighten slightly. Trey Calder, Sophia's boss at the consulting firm. The man with the perfect smile and expensive suits who always seemed to find reasons to keep Sophia working late. In the past month alone, Sophia had mentioned Trey's name 47 times in casual conversation. Roy had started counting after the 20th mention. How late? Don't know. Could be 10, maybe later. She grabbed her purse, keys jingling. The sound was different too. New keys? Don't wait up. Morrison Group signed their contract 3 weeks ago, Roy said quietly. Sophia paused, her hand on the door handle. What? The Morrison contract. It's already closed. I saw the announcement in the business journal. Right, but there are follow-up meetings. Implementation details. She didn't turn around. You know how these things work. Roy knew exactly how these things worked. In 15 years of business, he'd never seen implementation meetings that required dinner reservations and overnight stays. Roy finally looked at her. Sophia stood by the door, already distant, already gone. Her hair was different today, styled with professional precision, not the quick arrangement she usually managed in the morning. She wore the black dress he'd bought her for their anniversary last year, paired with heels that cost more than some people's monthly salary. The whole ensemble suggested someone dressing to impress. Special client? Something like that. She checked her reflection in the hallway mirror, adjusting an earring. I should go. New earrings. Sophia's hand froze at her ear. These? No, I've had them for years. Roy had an excellent memory for details. Financial training required it. Those earrings were definitely new. Expensive new. Diamond and platinum. Probably worth $3,000. Not the kind of thing Sophia bought for herself, and not something he'd purchased. Have a good meeting, he said. The door closed behind her with a soft click that seemed to echo in the empty kitchen. Roy stared at the space where his wife had stood, cataloging the changes he'd noticed over the past month. New clothes, new jewelry, new confidence. She moved differently now, with purpose and secrecy to eye in foster care. He'd learned to read people fast. Survival depended on knowing who had hurt you before they struck. The kids who missed the warning signs ended up broken. Roy had never missed the signs. That skill had served him well in business, helping him climb from nothing to CFO by 39, reading board members and competitors with equal precision. Now it was telling him something he didn't want to believe, but couldn't ignore. Roy's phone buzzed. A text from his old friend Ruben. Coffee later? Got some news about that logistics contract that he typed back. Can't today. Rain check. The reports needed his attention, but Roy found himself thinking about patterns. In the past 3 months, Sophia had worked late 17 times. Always with Trey. Always on days when Roy had early meetings or business dinners. Always when she knew he wouldn't be home to notice when she actually returned. His phone buzzed again. This time, Sophia, forgot my presentation folder. In my office upstairs. Don't touch anything that don't touch anything. An odd thing to say about a folder. Roy climbed the stairs to Sophia's home office. The folder sat on her desk, but something else caught his attention. A credit card statement, partially hidden under a magazine. His name wasn't on the account. He pulled out his phone and photographed the visible portions. Dinner at expensive restaurants. Hotel charges. All on dates when Sophia claimed to be working late with clients. Roy's chest tightened, but his mind stayed calm. Cold. In foster homes, Emotion got you hurt. Planning got you out. He left the folder where it was and went to work. 3 weeks later, Roy had assembled what any forensic accountant would recognize as a compelling case of financial infidelity. He sat in his office after hours, studying bank statements, phone records, and credit card bills spread across his mahogany desk like pieces of an intricate puzzle. Each document told part of a larger story that painted an increasingly clear picture of betrayal. The credit card statements revealed a pattern of expensive dinners at restaurants Roy had never heard of, always on weekdays, always charged between 7 and 10 p.m. Hotel stays that coincided with Sophia's claimed overnight business trips. Jewelry purchases from stores that didn't send packages to their house. The financial evidence alone suggested someone living a double life. His phone records told an even more damning story. In the past 2 months, Sophia had exchanged over 300 text messages with Trey Calder's personal number. The frequency increased dramatically after business hours, with message clusters occurring late at night and early in the morning. Whatever they were discussing, it wasn't business. That Roy's computer monitor displayed a spreadsheet he'd created to track Sophia's movements. Claimed business dinners cross-referenced with actual client activity. Hotel stays verified against conference schedules. Meeting times that didn't align with office hours. The pattern was unmistakable. Sophia was lying about approximately 60% of her stated activities. His assistant knocked on the office door. "Mr. Ashford, your wife called. She won't make dinner tonight." "Did she say why?" "Emergency client meeting." She sounded stressed about it. Roy nodded and waited for her to leave. Then he pulled up the location tracking on their shared phone plan. Sophia's phone showed her at the Fairview Hotel, not her office. She'd been there for 2 hours during what should have been normal business hours. The same hotel that appeared on those mysterious credit card charges. His computer chimed with an email notification. Roy opened it, expecting work correspondence. Instead, he found a message from Nina Jameson, Sophia's secretary, sent to the wrong recipient. The subject line read, "Tomorrow's schedule. S. Trey wants to know if her suspects anything. You need to be more careful about the phone calls. The lawyer says everything has to look normal until we're ready to move. Make sure all the documentation stays consistent. Delete this message after reading." Roy read the message 3 times, his expression never changing. The lawyer. Documentation. They were planning something legal that required careful preparation and deception. In his experience, that usually meant one thing: divorce proceedings designed to maximize one party's advantage while the other remained unaware. He forwarded the email to a secure personal account, then created a backup copy on an encrypted drive. After deleting the original from his work system, he opened a new spreadsheet and began documenting every piece of evidence he'd gathered. Dates, times, locations, amounts, communication patterns. If Sophia and Trey were planning a legal ambush, they would discover that Roy Ashford never entered any fight unprepared. He forwarded the email to a secure account, then deleted it from his work system. His phone rang, the caller ID displaying Sophia's name and the photo he'd taken of her last Christmas. She was smiling in that picture, genuinely happy. Before Trey called her. Before whatever this had become. "Hey, I'm going to be really late. This client is demanding." "Which client?" A pause. Roy could hear background noise through the phone. Not office sounds. Music. Conversation. The ambient noise of a restaurant or bar. "The Morrison Group. Trey thinks we can close them tonight if we push hard enough." Roy pulled up his computer screen and navigated to the Morrison Group's website. Their press releases section showed the contract signing announcement from 3 weeks ago, complete with photos of handshakes and smiling executives. The deal was not only closed, it was being implemented. Sounds important. It is. Trey's really counting on this one. He says it could make or break the quarter for the whole firm. Another lie. Roy had access to Preston, Calder and Associates' quarterly filings through his business database subscriptions. Their Q3 numbers were already strong, with or without Morrison Group. "Will you be home tonight?" "I don't think so. This might go really late." "Don't wait up, okay? I know you have that early meeting tomorrow." Roy did have an early meeting. He'd mentioned it to Sophia 4 days ago. The fact that she remembered suggested she was paying careful attention to his schedule, planning around it. I won't wait up. Thanks, honey. You're the best. The endearment felt hollow through the phone. Performative. Roy hung up and stared at his reflection in the dark computer screen. In that distorted image, he saw his father's eyes looking back. Cold, calculating, unforgiving. His father had been a bastard who'd abandoned his family when Roy was 7, but he'd taught Roy one valuable lesson before disappearing. Never let anyone play you for a fool. That night, Roy didn't go home. Instead, he drove to the Fairview Hotel and parked across the street where he could see the parking lot clearly. Sophia's car sat in the parking lot next to a silver BMW with vanity plates that read Calder. Trey's car. Roy didn't go inside. He didn't need to see what he already knew. Instead, he took photos of the license plates, the timestamps, the hotel entrance. He documented everything with a methodical precision that had made him successful in business. Evidence was power, and power was the only thing that mattered when someone tried to destroy you. 11:47 p.m. Roy watched Sophia and Trey exit the hotel separately. Sophia left first, walking quickly to her car without looking around. Trey followed 10 minutes later, straightening his tie and checking his phone. They thought they were being careful. They thought they were smart. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Roy called his old contact from the accounting firm the next morning. David Chun had helped him with financial audits for 3 different companies over the past 5 years. More importantly, David understood discretion and the value of thorough investigation. I need a favor, Roy said from his office, door closed and voice low. Quiet and confidential. What kind of favor? Personal matter. My wife's been moving money around. I need to know where, how much, and through what mechanisms. David was quiet for a long moment. Roy could hear papers rustling in the background, the sound of someone considering a request that crossed professional boundaries. Roy, if this is about divorce proceedings, it's about protecting myself from financial fraud. Can you help, or should I find someone else? What do you have so far? Roy opened his file drawer and pulled out the documentation he'd been assembling. Credit card statements showing hidden accounts. Bank transfers to institutions I don't recognize. Investment movements that bypass our joint oversight. Plus evidence that she's coordinating with her employer's legal department. How much money are we talking about? Conservative estimate? Between $150,000 and $200,000. Possibly more if she's been more creative than I've detected. David whistled softly. That's felony territory in Tennessee. Asset concealment above $25,000 gets serious attention from prosecutors. I'm not looking to send her to prison. I'm looking to protect my financial interests. Send me what you have. I'll take a forensic approach. But Roy, if she's moving that kind of money without disclosure, you're not just looking at divorce fraud. You're looking at potential criminal charges, whether you want them or not. That afternoon, Roy met with Jim Walsh, a legal contact from his business network. Jim specialized in corporate mergers, but his firm maintained relationships with family law practitioners throughout Middle Tennessee. You need Dahlia Knox, Jim said over lunch at the downtown club, where they'd met several times for business discussions. She's sharp, aggressive when necessary, and she has personal history with Trey Calder's firm. What kind of history? The destructive kind. Calder sabotaged her reputation when she was a young associate trying to make partner track. Cost her a position at a prestigious firm, damaged her professional network, nearly ended her legal career before it started. Roy cut his steak precisely, thinking about opportunities and motivations. How long ago? 8, maybe 9 years. She's been building her own practice since then, taking cases that the big firms won't touch. Specializes in David versus Goliath situations. Word is she's been waiting for the right opportunity to settle scores with Calder. Does she win her cases? Consistently, especially when she has personal investment in the outcome. Jim leaned forward, lowering his voice. Roy, if you're planning what I think you're planning, Dahlia Knox isn't just a lawyer. She's a weapon aimed at Trey Calder's professional reputation. Where can I find her? She has an office on Union Street. Small practice, but don't let that fool you. She's turned down offers from major firms because she prefers working independently. More flexibility to pursue cases that matter to her personally. That evening, Roy researched Dahlia Knox thoroughly. Her law school credentials were impressive. University of Virginia, Law Review, graduated summa cum laude. Her early career showed promise until an abrupt departure from Hamilton, Bradley & Associates after just 18 months. After that, she'd built her practice slowly, methodically, specializing in cases involving professional misconduct and fiduciary responsibility. Most interesting was a Bar Journal article she'd written about legal ethics in client representation. The piece specifically criticized lawyers who used personal relationships to influence client decisions, calling such behavior a fundamental betrayal of professional responsibility. Reading between the lines, Roy recognized someone with both the skill and motivation to help him destroy Trey Calder's career. Roy found Dahlia Knox's office in a modest 3-story building on Union Street, tucked between a coffee shop and a vintage bookstore. The building itself looked unremarkable, but the directory showed several small professional practices that specialized in fighting larger institutions. The kind of place where David battled Goliath on a daily basis. Her office was on the 2nd floor, marked with a simple nameplate: Knox Legal Services, Family and Professional Responsibility Law. Roy knocked and entered when invited. Dahlia Knox was younger than he'd expected, maybe 33, with auburn hair pulled back in a practical style and serious brown eyes that missed nothing. She wore a navy suit that looked expensive but not flashy. Professional competence without ostentation. Her handshake was firm, direct, the kind that established dominance without aggression. Jim Walsh says you need help with a personal matter. My wife is planning to divorce me. She's working with her boss and his law firm to build a case against me. They think I don't know about any of it. Dahlia gestured to a chair across from her desk. The office was small but efficiently organized, with law books arranged by topic and case files stacked with military precision. No clutter, no wasted space. Roy appreciated the attention to detail. Tell me about the boss. Trey Calder, senior partner at Preston, Calder and Associates. Her expression changed instantly. The professional neutrality vanished, replaced by something sharper and more personal. That Trey Calder? You know him? We have extensive history. What exactly do you think they're planning? Roy spread out printed emails, bank statements, and photographs on her desk. Financial manipulation first. She's moved nearly $200,000 into hidden accounts. Character assassination second. They want to paint me as emotionally abusive and controlling while she positions herself as the victim. Dahlia studied the documents with the intensity of someone who understood both the legal implications and the human cost. She picked up the misdirected email from Nina, reading it twice before setting it down. This email from the secretary mentions a lawyer. If Trey's firm is representing your wife while he's having an affair with her, that's not just a conflict of interest. That's grounds for disbarment. Can you use that information? Oh, I can do much more than use it. I can destroy their entire legal strategy and probably end Trey's career in the process. She looked up at Roy, her expression serious. But I need to know something first. How far are you willing to go with this? Roy met her eyes without flinching. As far as necessary. I'm not talking about winning the divorce. I'm talking about complete destruction, professional ruin, financial devastation, criminal charges where applicable. Are you prepared for that level of warfare? Roy thought about foster homes where weakness got you hurt and strength got you survival. He thought about building his career from nothing while people with connections and advantages try to push him down. He thought about Sophia's lies and Trey's arrogance and Nina's smug confidence that they were smarter than the man they were betraying. Yes, good, because if we do this correctly, your wife won't just lose the divorce. She'll lose everything. Her job, her reputation, her financial security, possibly her freedom. Same for Trey and anyone else involved in this conspiracy. Dahlia opened a new file folder and began taking notes. I'll need complete financial records for the past 2 years. Phone records, email accounts, travel documentation, anything that establishes the timeline of the affair and the asset concealment. I have most of that already. Excellent. I'll also need you to continue documenting everything. Every conversation, every lie, every attempt at manipulation. Tennessee is a one-party consent state for recordings, so we can use anything you capture. You want me to record my own wife. I want you to protect yourself against false allegations. If she's planning to claim abuse or emotional manipulation, we need evidence of her actual behavior and motivations. Roy considered this. The idea of secretly recording Sophia felt like crossing a line, moving from investigation to active deception. But then he remembered her lies about Morrison Group, her new jewelry, her careful attention to his schedule so she could plan around his absences. What kind of recording equipment do I need? Your smartphone will work fine. Most have built-in recording apps that are legally admissible in Tennessee courts. The key is making sure you're part of every conversation you record. How long do you think this will take? Dahlia smiled for the first time since he'd mentioned Trey's name. Depends on how careful they think they're being. If they're arrogant enough to believe you're completely in the dark, they'll make mistakes. Arrogance always leads to mistakes. Roy left Dahlia's office with a recording app installed on his phone and a clear understanding of what was about to happen. He was no longer just discovering his wife's betrayal. He was actively building the case that would destroy her. Roy started moving his assets the next week. He'd built his wealth carefully over 15 years, and he knew how to protect it. The manufacturing company he worked for had excellent executive benefits programs. Roy moved money into employer-sponsored trusts, retirement accounts, and corporate structures that would be difficult to touch in a divorce. He also created Ashford Holdings, LLC, a consulting company that existed on paper but generated no real income. On the surface, it looked like Roy was starting a side business. In reality, it was a shell that could receive and hold assets if needed. Meanwhile, Dahlia worked her own angles. She contacted Annabeth Reed, a retired family court judge who now worked as an ethics consultant. I need someone to review a case for potential judicial misconduct, Dahlia told Roy during their second meeting. Judge Reed is the best. If there's something fishy about the legal representation, she'll find it. What do you need from me? Keep documenting everything. And I need you to do something that might feel wrong. Roy waited. I need you to start recording conversations with your wife. Tennessee is a one-party consent state. As long as you're part of the conversation, it's legal. You want me to spy on my own wife. I want you to protect yourself. If she's planning to claim you're abusive or controlling, we need evidence of her actual behavior. Roy considered this. In foster care, the kids who survived were the ones who gathered information and used it when necessary. The ones who trusted blindly got hurt. What kind of recording device? Your phone. Most smartphones can record calls and voice memos. Just make sure you start recording before each conversation. That evening, Roy installed a recording app on his phone. He tested it twice to make sure it worked. Sophia came home late again, claiming another client emergency. Roy was in the kitchen when she arrived, recording app ready on his phone. Long day? He asked, starting the recording. Exhausting. Trey had me work through dinner on the Patterson proposal. Patterson's not our client anymore. They signed with Hamilton and Associates last month. Sophia paused, her keys halfway to the counter. Right? I meant the preliminary work for the next phase. Roy nodded and said nothing. The lie was clear in the recording. Over the next 2 weeks, Sophia's behavior escalated in ways that seemed almost scripted. She became more aggressive, more critical, finding fault with aspects of Roy's behavior that she'd never mentioned in 7 years of marriage. Roy was recording every conversation now, building a comprehensive library of evidence that revealed her true motivations. You're never emotionally available anymore, she said one evening, though Roy had been home every night for the past month and had initiated several conversations about her work stress. What would you like me to be available for? I don't know. Conversation. Connection. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a machine instead of a person. Roy was recording this exchange on his phone, which sat face down on the coffee table between them. What kind of conversation do you want to have? See? That's exactly what I mean. You turn everything into a clinical question. No emotion. No warmth. No genuine interest in my feelings or experiences. Roy watched his wife pace around their living room, her voice rising with calculated precision. She was building a performance, creating evidence of his supposed emotional inadequacy. Each accusation was designed to establish a pattern that could be used later in court. You want to talk about feelings? Roy asked. Yes, something. Anything that shows you're a human being instead of a financial calculator. I feel like you're preparing for something. Like you're testing responses and documenting reactions. Sophia, stop pacing. That's paranoid, Roy. And controlling. You're constantly suspicious of everything I do, everywhere I go, everyone I work with. It's suffocating. I'm suspicious because you've given me reasons to be suspicious. Such as the Morrison Group meetings that happen after they've already signed their contract. The emergency client dinners at hotels instead of restaurants. The new jewelry you claim you've owned for years. Sophia's face flushed with anger, but Roy noticed something else in her expression. Relief. As if she'd been waiting for him to make accusations that she could use against him. This constant interrogation is exactly what I mean. You monitor my phone location. You question every business expense. You act like I'm some kind of criminal instead of your wife. I act like someone who's discovered that his wife has been lying about her activities for months. I haven't been lying about anything. I've been trying to build my career while dealing with a husband who treats me like a suspect in his personal investigation. Roy stood up, ending the recording. Sophia had just given him exactly what Dahlia had said she would, a clear statement denying the affair and the financial manipulation, captured on audio with perfect clarity. When this recording was played in court alongside the evidence of hotel stays and hidden bank accounts, Sophia's credibility would be completely destroyed. I'm going to bed, Roy said. That's it. You make these accusations and then just walk away. What would you like me to do, Sophia? Fight for our marriage. Show some emotion. Act like you care whether we stay together or not. Roy looked at his wife, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman he'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. But everything else about her had changed. The person he'd married wouldn't have stolen money from their joint accounts. The person he'd married wouldn't have planned to destroy his reputation for legal advantage. The person he'd married had died somewhere in the past year, replaced by someone he didn't recognize. I don't fight for things that are already over. He went upstairs, leaving Sophia alone in the living room. Through the bedroom floor, he could hear her making a phone call. The conversation was too muffled to understand, but the tone was urgent, frustrated. Probably reporting to Trey or Nina about the evening's confrontation. Roy didn't care what she told them. Every lie she reported would become evidence later. Every strategy they discussed would be something Dahlia could anticipate and counter. Sophia thought she was building a case against him, but she was actually building a case against herself. That evening, Roy came home to find Sophia in the kitchen with Nina Jameson. They were seated at the breakfast bar, heads close together over coffee cups, speaking in the kind of hushed tones that suggested conspiracy rather than casual conversation. Roy, Sophia said, straightening up quickly when she heard his footsteps. You remember Nina? Of course. Roy nodded at the younger woman, noting how her body language shifted from intimate to professional in seconds. How are you, Nina? Good. Really good. Just stopped by to drop off some files for Sophia. Roy looked around the kitchen. Nina's purse was closed, sitting by her elbow. No files were visible anywhere on the counter or table. Her coffee cup was half empty, suggesting she'd been there for a while rather than making a quick delivery. Work files, client research stuff, background for a new pitch we're developing. Nina stood up, grabbing her purse with obvious haste. Really boring spreadsheet work. Nothing you'd find interesting. Roy noticed Nina's nervousness in the way she avoided eye contact and rushed her words. In business negotiations, he learned to read these tells. Nina was lying, and not very skillfully. What kind of pitch? Consulting services for a manufacturing company. Similar to what you do, actually. Sophia's interjection came too quickly, as if she'd rehearsed this explanation. Nina's been helping me research the industry. Which manufacturing company? Nina and Sophia exchanged a quick glance. It's preliminary, Sophia said. We can't discuss client details until the contract is finalized. Roy nodded as if he accepted this explanation, but his mind cataloged the lies. Nina worked as a secretary, not a researcher. Sophia's firm specialized in service industries, not manufacturing. And most importantly, Roy knew every major manufacturing company in Middle Tennessee. None of them were seeking new consulting contracts. Sounds like an interesting opportunity, Roy said. It could be huge for the firm. Nina added with the enthusiasm of someone trying too hard to sound convincing. Trey thinks it might be our biggest contract this year. Another tell. Nina had just revealed that Trey was involved in whatever they were really discussing, despite claiming it was just research work. Well, I don't want to interrupt your meeting, Roy said, moving toward the stairs. I have some work to catch up on. Actually, I should go, Nina said quickly. Thanks for the coffee, Sophia. I'll see you tomorrow morning. After Nina left, Roy asked, what kind of research were you really working on? Exactly what I told you. Background for a potential client pitch. Nina doesn't do research. She schedules meetings and answers phones. She's trying to expand her role. Trey thinks she has potential for more analytical work. Roy processed this lie along with all the others. I see. You don't believe me. I think you're protecting something you don't want me to know about. Sophia's expression shifted to frustration, the same calculated emotion she'd been displaying for weeks. There it is again. The suspicion. The assumption that I'm hiding something instead of just trying to advance my career. Are you hiding something? No, Roy. I'm trying to be successful at my job while dealing with a husband who treats every conversation like a deposition. That night, Sophia left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. Roy had maybe 90 seconds before she'd notice it missing. He moved quickly, opening her messages and scanning for anything from Nina or Trey. He found a voice message from Nina sent that afternoon at 3:27 p.m. Roy plugged in his earbuds and hit play. Hey, it's me. Just talked to Trey about tonight. He wants to make sure Roy doesn't suspect anything before we're ready to move. The meeting with Richards went well this morning. He thinks we have a strong case for emotional abuse and financial control. Trey's going to crush him in court. We've got the judge in pocket, and the whole office thinks you're a genius for pulling this off. He has no idea what's coming. Call me back when you get this, but use the secure number. Roy stopped the recording and quickly forwarded it to his personal email address. Then he deleted the sent message from Sophia's phone and replaced the device exactly where she'd left it. His hands were perfectly steady as he went upstairs to his home office, Richards. That was a name he didn't recognize, but the context made it clear. Another lawyer, probably the one who would represent Sophia when Trey's firm had to withdraw due to conflict of interest. The reference to having the judge in pocket suggested either corruption or at minimum inappropriate ex parte communication. Most importantly, the message confirmed that this wasn't just about divorce. They were planning to accuse him of emotional abuse and financial control. False allegations designed to destroy his reputation and maximize Sophia's settlement. Roy opened his laptop and began typing notes about the voice message. Date, time, content, legal implications. He was building a case file that would destroy everyone involved in this conspiracy. They thought he was clueless, sitting at home unaware of their machinations. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. Roy called Reuben Malik the next day. His oldest friend from foster care now worked as a logistics VP at a shipping company. They'd stayed in touch over the years, helping each other when needed. I need a favor, Roy said. Personal situation. What kind of personal situation? The kind where I might need a quiet place to work and some discreet professional help. Reuben didn't ask for details. In foster care, you learn not to ask too many questions when a friend needed help. I've got a small office space we're not using. And I know some people. What kind of people? The kind who help when marriages go bad. That afternoon, Roy met Reuben at a small office building on the outskirts of Franklin. The space was perfect, private, secure, with internet access and meeting rooms. Use it as long as you need, Reuben said. I also talked to someone about public relations. If this gets messy, you'll want your story told the right way. I don't want publicity. Not publicity. Protection. If your wife's planning to paint you as the bad guy, you need people who can show the truth. Roy shook hands with his oldest friend. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and you're still standing. The next morning, Roy met Dahlia at the secret office. She brought Annabeth Reed, the retired judge. Reed was in her late 50s, with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who'd spent years making difficult decisions. I've reviewed the materials you provided, Reed said without preamble. There are several potential ethics violations here, such as, first, If Trey Calder's firm is representing your wife while he's having a romantic relationship with her, that's a clear conflict of interest. They should have disclosed this to all parties and probably refused the case. Dahlia nodded. That's what I thought. Second, Reed continued. This voice message about having a judge in pocket suggests potential judicial corruption. That's a serious allegation that needs investigation. What does that mean for Roy? Dahlia asked. It means we have grounds to request a different judge, demand disclosure of all communications between the opposing counsel and any judicial staff, and possibly file ethics complaints against multiple people. Roy felt something cold and sharp settle in his chest. Not anger, something more useful than anger. Purpose. How do we use this information? Reed smiled. Very carefully and very effectively. 2 weeks later, Sophia served Roy with divorce papers. She handed them to him personally when he came home from work, a small smile playing at her lips. I think this is best for both of us, she said. Roy read through the documents carefully. Sophia was asking for half of everything, plus alimony, plus the house. She was also requesting that Roy pay her legal fees. You've been planning this for a while, Roy said. I've been thinking about it. We're not happy, Roy. We haven't been happy for years. And Trey makes you happy. Sophia's smile faltered. I don't know what you mean. I mean your boss. The one you've been having an affair with for the past 6 months. That's ridiculous. Roy pulled out his phone and played the voice message from Nina. Sophia's face went white as Nina's voice filled the room. Trey's going to crush him in court. We've got the judge in pocket, and the whole office thinks you're a genius for pulling this off. When the message ended, Roy put his phone away. You thought I didn't know, but I've known for weeks. Sophia's composure cracked. Roy, listen. No. Roy's voice was calm, steady. You listen. You want a divorce? Fine. But it's not going to go the way you planned. You can't fight this. Trey's firm just committed legal malpractice. Did you tell them about your relationship with him when they agreed to represent you? Sophia didn't answer. I didn't think so. Roy folded the divorce papers and put them in his jacket pocket. You should probably find new legal representation. And you might want to warn Trey that his career is about to get very complicated. Roy walked upstairs, leaving Sophia standing in the kitchen. He packed a suitcase with essential items, then came back downstairs. Where are you going? Somewhere I can work without distractions. My lawyer will be in touch. Roy left his own house without looking back. In the rearview mirror, he saw Sophia standing in the doorway, no longer smiling. The secret office. Roy called Dahlia. She served the papers, he said. Good. How did she react when you played the recording? Like someone who just realized they made a mistake. Tomorrow we file our response. Are you ready for this to get ugly? Roy thought about his childhood, about every foster home where he'd learned that the world was cruel and the only person you could trust was yourself. He thought about building his career from nothing, about every late night and early morning that had gotten him where he was. I've been ready my whole life. The courthouse in Franklin buzzed with morning activity as Roy and Dahlia walked through the security checkpoint. Roy wore his best suit, the navy one that made him look successful but not flashy. Dahlia carried a briefcase thick with documents. Remember, she said as they approached the courtroom, let me do the talking. Your job is to look calm and competent. I am calm. Good. Because Sophie is going to be here with whatever lawyer she found to replace Trey's firm. They entered the courtroom to find Sophia already seated at the plaintiff's table with a man Roy didn't recognize. The lawyer looked nervous, shuffling through papers and whispering urgently to Sophia. She kept glancing back at Roy with an expression he couldn't read. Judge Patricia Morrison called the session to order. She was in her 60s, with steel gray hair and the no-nonsense attitude of someone who'd seen every kind of family drama. This is a preliminary hearing for the divorce petition filed by Sophia Ashford against Roy Ashford. Counsel for the plaintiff. Sophia's new lawyer stood up. Michael Richards, representing Mrs. Ashford, Your Honor. Counsel for the defendant. Dahlia Rose. Dahlia Knox, representing Mr. Ashford. Your Honor, before we proceed, we need to address several serious issues that have come to light regarding the opposing party's legal representation and conduct. Judge Morrison frowned. What kind of issues, Ms. Knox? conflict of interest, potential judicial corruption, and ethics violations by the previous counsel. We're requesting an immediate review of this case. Richards jumped up. Your Honor, this is clearly a delay tactic. Sit down, Mr. Richards. Judge Morrison's voice was sharp. Ms. Knox, you have 5 minutes to explain. Dahlia opened her briefcase. Your Honor, Mrs. Ashford was previously represented by Preston, Calder and Associates. What they failed to disclose is that Mrs. Ashford has been having an extramarital affair with Trey Calder, a senior partner at that firm. Objection. Richards called out. Overruled. Continue, Ms. Knox. Furthermore, we have evidence that suggests improper communication between the opposing counsel and judicial staff. We have a recorded statement indicating that they believe they had influenced judicial assignment. Judge Morrison's expression darkened. You have recordings? Yes, Your Honor. Voice messages sent between Mrs. Ashford and her secretary, Nina Jameson, discussing their confidence in the legal proceedings based on alleged judicial favoritism. Roy watched Sophia's face as Dahlia spoke. She looked sick, her confident smile completely gone. Your Honor, Richards tried again. These are serious allegations that should be investigated separately. They will be. Judge Morrison's voice was ice cold. Ms. Knox, I'm ordering a complete review of this case. All previous legal work will be examined by the State Bar Ethics Committee. In the meantime, this case is suspended pending investigation. Sophia turned in her seat to stare at Roy. For the first time since he'd known her, she looked afraid. Outside the courthouse, Dahlia was practically glowing. That went better than I hoped. Judge Morrison doesn't tolerate corruption in her courtroom. What happens now? Now we wait for the ethics investigation, and we prepare for the real divorce proceedings. Because when this starts again, you're going to win everything. Roy nodded, but his mind was already moving to the next phase. Winning in court was only part of what he wanted. He wanted everyone who had laughed at him behind his back to understand exactly who they had underestimated. That evening, Roy returned to the house to collect more of his belongings. Sophia was waiting for him in the living room. We need to talk, she said. Roy started recording on his phone. About what? About fixing this. About saving our marriage. There's nothing to save. Roy, please. I made a mistake. The thing with Trey, it didn't mean anything. It was just. She searched for words. It was an escape from how things were between us. How were things between us, Sophia? Cold. Distant. You never showed me any emotion, any warmth. I felt like I was living with a stranger. Roy studied his wife's face. Even now, trying to save herself, she was lying. You felt distant, so you decided to steal my money and destroy my reputation? I never wanted to hurt you. Trey convinced me that you'd be better off without me. He said we could make it clean, simple, by framing me as abusive. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I never wanted it to go that far. But once it started, I couldn't stop it. You could have stopped it by not starting it. Please, Roy, we can work this out. I'll fire Trey. I'll quit my job. We can go to counseling. Roy looked at the woman he'd married 7 years ago. The woman he'd loved, supported, and trusted. The woman who had planned to destroy him for money and another man's attention. No. What do you mean, no? I mean, I will never forgive you. I will never trust you. And I will never give you another chance to hurt me. Sophia's tears turned angry. So that's it? You're going to throw away 7 years of marriage over one mistake. You didn't make one mistake, Sophia. You made dozens of choices over months. Every lie, every secret meeting, every dollar you moved without telling me. Those were all choices. Everyone makes mistakes. I don't. Roy picked up his suitcase. And I don't forgive them either. He left Sophia crying in the living room and drove back to his temporary office. There, he called Ruben. How's the PR contact working out? Good. We've got a narrative ready if this gets public. Successful businessman betrayed by unfaithful wife and corrupt lawyer. Very clean, very sympathetic. And the other thing, the financial investigation? Roy, what they find is going to destroy her. Sophia moved almost $200,000 into accounts she thought you couldn't trace. That's felony-level asset hiding. Roy felt that cold satisfaction again. Good. You sure about this path? Once we release this information, there's no going back. Roy thought about Sophia's tears, her pleas for forgiveness. He thought about Nina's smug voice on the recording. He thought about Trey Calder's expensive suits and confident smile. I'm sure. The courthouse in Franklin buzzed with morning activity as Roy and Dahlia walked through the security checkpoint. Roy wore his best Navy suit, the one that conveyed success without arrogance, paired with a conservative tie that suggested competence and reliability. Every detail of his appearance had been carefully chosen to project the image of a stable, professional man wronged by circumstances beyond his control. Dahlia carried a briefcase that seemed unusually thick, weighted down with months of documentation and legal preparation. She'd spent the previous evening organizing exhibits in the order they would present the most devastating narrative: financial records showing asset concealment, recorded conversations revealing lies and manipulation, and evidence of the conspiracy between Sophia, Trey, and Nina to defraud Roy in divorce proceedings. "Remember," she said as they approached the courtroom doors, "let me do all the talking unless Judge Morrison addresses you directly. Your job is to look calm, competent, and sympathetic. Let the evidence speak for your character." "I am calm." "Good. Because Sophie is going to be here with whatever replacement lawyer she managed to find after Trey's firm withdrew. They're going to try to portray you as controlling and emotionally abusive. When you hear those accusations, don't react. Don't defend yourself. Just let me handle it." They entered the courtroom to find Sophia already seated at the plaintiff's table with a man Roy didn't recognize. The replacement lawyer looked nervous, constantly shuffling through papers and whispering urgently to Sophia in the kind of rushed conversation that suggested last-minute preparation. He was younger than Roy had expected, probably in his 30s, with the slightly desperate air of someone who'd taken a case that was already falling apart. Sophia kept glancing back at Roy with an expression that mixed defiance with something that might have been fear. She wore a conservative dress and minimal makeup, clearly trying to project an image of someone who'd been emotionally battered rather than someone who'd orchestrated an elaborate fraud scheme. Behind the plaintiff's table sat Nina Jameson, who had been subpoenaed to testify about her knowledge of the financial irregularities and her role in coordinating the conspiracy. She looked significantly younger in civilian clothes, nervous in the way that suggested someone who'd realized the seriousness of her legal situation. Her eyes kept darting toward the exit, as if she was calculating whether she could simply leave. Judge Patricia Morrison called the session to order. She was in her early 60s, with steel-gray hair pulled back severely and the no-nonsense bearing of someone who'd presided over every kind of family drama Tennessee could produce. Her reputation was for fairness, combined with an absolute intolerance for legal misconduct or courtroom theatrics. "This is a preliminary hearing for the divorce petition filed by Sophia Ashford against Roy Ashford. The court notes that this case has been transferred from Judge Williams due to allegations of improper ex parte communication. Counsel for the plaintiff." Sophia's replacement lawyer stood slowly, his nervousness visible in the way he adjusted his tie twice before speaking. "Michael Richards, representing Mrs. Ashford, Your Honor. We request that the court expedite these proceedings given the urgent nature of Mrs. Ashford's financial circumstances." Counsel for the defendant. Dahlia rose with the confidence of someone who'd been preparing for this moment for months. "Dahlia Knox, representing Mr. Ashford. Your Honor, before we proceed with any discussion of expedited proceedings, we need to address several serious issues that have come to light regarding the opposing party's legal representation, conduct during this marriage, and apparent conspiracy to commit fraud against my client." Judge Morrison frowned, her expression suggesting someone who didn't appreciate having her courtroom used for complex conspiracies. "What kind of issues, Ms. Knox?" "Conflict of interest involving the previous counsel, potential judicial corruption, ethics violations, asset concealment, and conspiracy to present false testimony. We're requesting an immediate comprehensive review of this case and all related legal conduct." Richards jumped up from his seat. "Your Honor, this is clearly a delay tactic designed to prevent Mrs. Ashford from obtaining the financial relief she desperately needs." "Sit down, Mr. Richards." Judge Morrison's voice carried the sharp authority of someone who'd spent 20 years managing courtroom disruptions. Ms. Knox, you have 5 minutes to explain these allegations with specificity. Dahlia opened her briefcase and removed a thick folder of documents. Your Honor, Mrs. Ashford was previously represented by Preston, Calder and Associates. What they failed to disclose to this court, to opposing counsel, or apparently to their own ethics review board, is that Mrs. Ashford has been engaged in an extramarital affair with Trey Calder, a senior partner at that firm, for approximately 8 months. Objection. Richards called out, though his voice lacked conviction. Overruled. This goes to legal representation and potential misconduct. Continue, Ms. Knox. Furthermore, Your Honor, we have documented evidence that suggests improper communication between the previous counsel and judicial staff regarding case assignment and procedural advantages. We have recorded statements indicating that the opposing party believed they had improperly influenced judicial proceedings. Judge Morrison's expression darkened considerably. You have recordings of such statements? Yes, Your Honor. Voice messages sent between Mrs. Ashford and her secretary, Nina Jameson, discussing their confidence in these legal proceedings based on alleged judicial favoritism, and specifically referencing having the judge in pocket. Roy watched Sophia's face as Dahlia methodically destroyed her legal strategy. All the confidence she displayed over the past months was gone, replaced by the pale realization that her careful plans were collapsing in real time. She leaned forward to whisper something to Richards, but he was too focused on Dahlia's presentation to pay attention to his client. Your Honor, Richards tried again, standing up despite Judge Morrison's previous instruction. These are serious allegations that should be investigated separately from the underlying divorce proceedings. They will be investigated, Mr. Richards, thoroughly. Judge Morrison's voice had dropped to the tone she used for lawyers who'd push her patients too far. Ms. Knox, I'm ordering a complete review of this case by the State Bar Ethics Committee. All previous legal work, all communications involving judicial staff, and all financial documentation will be examined. In the meantime, these proceedings are suspended pending the outcome of that investigation. Sophia turned in her seat to stare at Roy with an expression of complete shock. For the first time since he'd known her, she looked genuinely afraid. The confident woman who'd served him divorce papers and smiled about crushing him in court had been replaced by someone who was beginning to understand the magnitude of her miscalculation. Dahlia presented a thick folder. Mr. Ashford is seeking full control of all marital assets, given Mrs. Ashford's deliberate attempt to defraud him. We're also requesting that Mrs. Ashford be held responsible for all legal fees associated with uncovering her fraud. What about Mrs. Ashford's living expenses? Given that she attempted to steal nearly $200,000 from a marriage, we believe she has sufficient resources to support herself. Judge Carter reviewed more documents. Mr. Richards, what can you say about these hidden accounts? Richards shuffled his papers nervously. Your Honor, my client was following legal advice. Illegal legal advice from a conflicted attorney. Judge Carter looked at Nina. Ms. Jameson, you're here under subpoena. What can you tell the court about your knowledge of these financial transfers? Nina stood up, visibly shaking. Your Honor, I was just following orders from Mr. Calder and Mrs. Ashford. They told me to coordinate meetings and handle some paperwork. What kind of paperwork? Bank documents, account transfers, meeting schedules for. Nina glanced at Sophia, then back at the judge. For planning the divorce strategy. Did you know that Mrs. Ashford was hiding assets from her husband? Nina was silent for a long moment. Yes, Your Honor. The courtroom was quiet except for the sound of the court reporter's keys. Judge Carter looked at Roy. Mr. Ashford, do you have anything to say before I make my ruling? Roy stood up. He'd prepared a speech, but looking at Sophia's defeated expression, he realized he didn't need it. No, Your Honor. The evidence speaks for itself. Indeed it does. Judge Carter organized his papers. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of marital fraud I've seen in 20 years on the bench. Mrs. Ashford, your attempt to conceal assets while planning to destroy your husband's reputation in divorce proceedings shows a level of calculated deception that cannot be excused. Sophia began crying quietly. Therefore, I'm awarding Mr. Ashford complete control of all marital assets, including the family home, investment accounts, and business interests. Mrs. Ashford will receive a settlement of $50,000, which represents her contribution to the marriage before the fraudulent activity began. Richards jumped up. Your Honor, Mrs. Ashford can't survive on $50,000. Mrs. Ashford should have considered that before attempting to steal $187,000 from her husband. Judge Carter's tone was final. Furthermore, Mrs. Ashford will be responsible for all legal fees associated with this case, including Mr. Ashford's attorney fees. Roy felt no satisfaction in Sophia's tears. He felt nothing at all. Additionally, Judge Carter continued, I'm issuing a restraining order preventing Mrs. Ashford from contacting Mr. Ashford directly or indirectly, given the evidence of harassment and attempted character assassination. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Outside the courthouse, Roy watched Sophia walk to her car alone. Richards had abandoned her immediately after the ruling, citing other commitments. Nina Jameson hurried past them all, avoiding eye contact. Dahlia stood next to Roy, reviewing her notes. That went exactly as planned. What happens to Nina? She's facing charges for obstruction of justice and conspiracy to commit fraud. Her cooperation today might help her avoid jail time, but her career is over. And Trey, disbarred as of last week. His firm settled with the State Bar Association for $2 million. They're closing the practice. Roy nodded. What about Sophia's job? Fired for cause when the investigation became public. Her boss didn't want the liability of keeping someone involved in a fraud case. A week later, Ruben called with more updates. Sophia is living with her sister in Ohio now. Temp work, office jobs that pay about a quarter of what she used to make. And the lawsuit, Trey's old firm is suing her for damages. They claim her lies about the nature of her relationship with Trey cost them their reputation and client base. Roy was in his home office, back in a house that was now completely his. Everything was exactly as he'd left it, except for the empty spaces where Sophia's belongings used to be. What about Nina? Plea bargain. 2 years probation, community service, and she has to pay restitution. She's working at a grocery store now. Roy hung up and looked around his office. The silence was complete. No more late-night meetings with Trey. No more whispered phone calls. No more lies about client dinners. His phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Roy Ashford. Roy, it's me. Sophia's voice was small, tired. Please don't hang up. Roy almost ended the call, but curiosity stopped him. You're violating the restraining order. I'm calling from my sister's phone. I needed to tell you I'm sorry. For which part? The affair, the theft, or the attempt to destroy my reputation? For all of it. I know you'll never forgive me, but I needed you to know that I understand what I did was wrong. Roy was quiet for a moment. Where are you working now? A temp agency. Data entry mostly. Her voice broke slightly. It's very different from before. Good. Roy, I lost everything. My job, my friends, my home. Isn't that enough? No. What do you mean, no? I mean you didn't lose everything. You gave it away. You chose Trey over me. Chose money over honesty. Chose lies over truth. You didn't lose anything, Sophia. You threw it away. I know that now. Knowing it now doesn't change what you did. There was a long silence on the line. Will you ever be able to forgive me? Roy looked out his office window at the yard he'd maintained alone for months while his wife plotted against him. No, never. I don't forgive people, Sophia. I never have. Ask anyone from my childhood. Ask anyone from work. When someone shows me who they really are, I believe them the first time. That's not a way to live. It's my way to live. And it's kept me from being hurt by people like you. Roy hung up and blocked the number. 6 months later, Roy stood in a conference room downtown, looking out at the Franklin skyline. Around the table sat the board members of the Ashford Foundation, a legal support nonprofit he'd created with Dahlia as the executive director. Our first quarter has been successful, Dahlia reported. We've helped 12 people navigate divorces involving financial fraud. 2 cases resulted in criminal charges against the perpetrators. Board member Susan Chen nodded approvingly. The need for this service is clearly significant. It is, Roy agreed. Too many people don't understand their rights when facing a spouse who's hiding assets or planning financial abuse. After the meeting, Roy and Dahlia walked to their cars together. Have you heard anything more about Trey or Sophia? Dahlia asked. Ruben keeps me updated. Trey's working as a paralegal in Cincinnati. Sophia is still doing temp work. Nina's still at the grocery store. Any regrets? Roy considered the question seriously. About the marriage ending? No. About not seeing who Sophia really was sooner? Maybe. You couldn't have known she'd do something like that. I could have known if I'd been paying closer attention. But I trusted her because I wanted to believe I could trust someone. They reached Roy's car. And now I know better. Dahlia smiled. Well, their loss became a lot of other people's gain. The foundation is going to help a lot of families. Roy drove home through the quiet streets of Franklin. His house was exactly as he wanted it now. Clean, organized, peaceful. No surprises. No hidden agendas. No lies. His phone buzzed with a text from Ruben. Dinner Friday? Have some news about that consulting contract. Roy typed back. Sounds good. My place at 7. In the kitchen, Roy poured himself a glass of wine and sat at the table where this had all begun. Where he'd first noticed the patterns that told him his marriage was over. Where he'd made the choice to fight back instead of becoming a victim. On the counter, his phone displayed a notification about a news article. Roy opened it and read the headline, Local Lawyer Disbarred in Divorce Fraud Scandal. The article included photos of Trey and Sophia from their court appearance months ago. Both looked defeated, diminished. The text described the investigation, the ethics violations, and the criminal charges. At the end, it mentioned the Ashford Foundation and its mission to help other victims of similar fraud. Roy finished reading and deleted the notification. The past was the past. Sophia, Trey, and Nina had made their choices and lived with the consequences. He made his choices too. His phone rang. A number he didn't recognize. Roy Ashford. Mr. Ashford, this is Rebecca Martinez for Channel 4 News. We're doing a follow-up story on the divorce fraud case from last year. Would you be willing to comment? No. We're particularly interested in how you discovered the fraud, and I said no. Roy hung up and blocked the number. He had no interest in being the public face of his own vindication. The foundation would help people quietly, efficiently, without drama or publicity. He poured himself another glass of wine and opened his laptop to review the foundation's financial reports. The numbers, as always, told a clear story. Assets properly allocated, expenses controlled, objectives being MET 9 o'clock. Roy's security system chimed with a motion alert from the front door camera. On his phone screen, he saw a woman approaching his door. For a moment, his chest tightened as he thought it might be Sophia violating the restraining order again. But it wasn't Sophia. It was Nina Jameson. She looked different in civilian clothes, younger and more nervous than she had in the office environments where he'd seen her before. She stood on his porch for a long moment, apparently gathering courage, then rang the doorbell. Roy didn't answer. After the second ring, Nina spoke toward the door. Mr. Ashford, I know you're home. I wanted to apologize. For my part in everything. I know I can't make it right, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Roy watched on his phone as Nina waited for a response that didn't come. I was young and stupid, and I thought it was all just a game. I didn't understand that you were a real person with real feelings. I'm sorry for that. She waited another minute, then turned and walked back to an old Honda in his driveway. Roy watched her drive away, then deleted the security footage. He finished his wine and went upstairs to bed. Tomorrow would bring more foundation work, more people to help, more problems to solve. But tonight, for the first time in over a year, Roy Ashford slept in complete peace. In the morning, he would wake up in a house that belonged entirely to him, paid for with money that was entirely his, surrounded by silence that was entirely honest. They had thought he didn't know. What they didn't know was that Roy Ashford never lost.